Thank you for agreeing to an interview with me. And let's just start by learning more about Carol. Let's just find out a little bit about you, where you grew up, your childhood, and maybe tell us something about when you were younger, your experiences related to spiritual matters.
Okay. I was born in West Texas, uh, the only daughter between two brothers. And I learned very quickly on that boys and girls are treated very differently. You see, my mother was an only child, and my father had one brother. He had three daughters and then committed suicide. So when my older brother was born, as the story was told to me, he basically walked on water, right? Because he's going to carry on the Boston name. And then there was me, and then there was my little brother. And then my mother didn't have any more children, so he was the last one. And I'll never forget going over to my great aunt and uncle's house a couple of times. And David, my older brother, had spilled his milk one time, and it was like no big deal. And I'm 2 years younger than him. And I spilled my milk and I got sent to my room with no dinner. And I began, I can look back and see the story I created for myself that, it was better to be a boy.
Right.
Or boys were treated very, very differently. So we grew up in Lubbock, Texas for about until I was 8.5. We moved to this little bitty town in Louisiana that very few people have heard of called Pineville. And it's known for its stinky paper mills and its psychiatric hospital. Yes, that's where we lived for about 3.5 years. And then we went to the big city, Shreveport. And when we were in Pineville, my dad, I learned how to play football, baseball, and basketball at a very early age, could play with the best of the boys, didn't really know what it was like to have a girlfriend to play with. It was always guys out in the country. So my very first softball team, my dad put me on. We had cow patties for bases. I never learned how to slide. To this day, I don't slide. And then we moved to Shreveport. And in 6th grade, I was already beginning to, what's the word I'm looking for? Break barriers, if you will, and not know it, because this is in 1971. I became the first girl to play on the boys' Little League hardball, fastball, baseball team.
Nice.
And this truly distressed my mother. Anybody who's listening, who's grown up in the Deep South, especially in the Southern Bible Belt, knows that there's rules, right, that are spoken and unspoken about how little girls are supposed to act. And according to my mother, I wasn't acting like a little girl. But fortunately, my dad was on the sidelines going, "Go, Carol, that's my girl. She's playing shortstop," right? So several things got me to where I am today. And one of the things
in your home, I guess it was Southern Baptist.
My dad was Baptist, my mother was Methodist, so we attended the Methodist church.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we just moved my dad recently from his home, since he's in Memphis, Tennessee now, a year ago. And he had been going to the same church for 40, maybe 41 years or more, probably 41 years. He was in the choir. We attended church twice a day. We went, in the morning, Sunday school, and at night, so he could sing in the choir. And I remember thinking, one of my favorite people, her name was Sunshine. And I kept saying, I'm changing my name to Sunshine, right? She was in the choir. She was in the choir with my dad, but she kind of gave me that uplifting attention that I didn't get from my mother. I didn't have a good relationship with my mother. As a matter of fact, it turned out many, many, many years later, we found out my mother had lied to us all along. Her father didn't die. He committed suicide. So there was suicide on both sides of my family.
Okay. That's very traumatic for a child.
Yes. Nobody wanted to talk about it. When I was 13, my dad said, "Let's go play tennis." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, it's like baseball. You can do this." So I went, and I couldn't play. It was terrible. And I remember going up to the net, putting the racket down, and I looked at him and I said, "Don't you ever bring me back here again. You brought me out here to embarrass me."
Aww.
2 years later, I'm on the swim team, and I noticed my swim team members were going down, and they were playing tennis. I told you I was raised in a very competitive household, always. So I was like, I can do it. But we didn't have any money for private lessons. So you might remember, but I'm older than you are. We had, in the days of the old wooden rackets, the small wooden rackets, that's when I started playing tennis. And I got a racket. And it's interesting that I either intuitively knew, or it was a God thing, that if I hung around people who were better than me, I would get better if I could get them to play with me.
Right.
So when my friends were, going out partying Friday and Saturday night, I was going to bed and getting up and going to the courts at 6 a.m. in the morning. And I would listen to the pro. I would just be a sponge on the sidelines. And the story's probably too long for this whole thing, but I finally made it to the high school team. I was number 6. I mean, we won the national championships, but the point was the other 5 girls who were ahead of me on the team all came from money, all had been playing since they were 5, not 15 like me. And they had a private coach and he took a liking to me.
Right.
So he would do things like, hey, Carol, I'm going to be working on Lauren's forehand. You want to come serve forehands? That was the only time I got to go to the country club. I was like, yeah, I'm going to the country club, right? We didn't have money. And I'll never forget when I was into my junior year and my dad looked at me. Now, mind you, he's got a deep Southern accent. He says, now, Carol, you need to get a job or you need to get an academic scholarship. I cannot send you to college. And I said, but Dad, I'm going to get a tennis scholarship. He paused and he kind of looked down his nose at me and he goes, like I said, get a job or get an academic scholarship. But there was someone else who believed in me. And it was one of 3 very pivotal times in my life that I chose to trust in someone else's vision for me till I could believe it for myself. And
Right.
I
And
chose
who
that.
was that?
His name was Lee Hedges. He was the football back in the day. He was the tennis coach, right? They just put the football coach on something else to do. But he just believed in me. And I think Jerry did too. He kept inviting me to practice with these other girls who were so much better than me. And I actually, at the end of my senior year, got 3 full offers, but they weren't to the schools I wanted to go to. I wanted to go be an LSU Fighting Tiger. So I got a half scholarship to LSU and I got a student loan and off I went. Guess what? I started at number 6 again there too. But only the top 6 get to play singles. I was happy to be in the top 6. Now I'm playing with ladies way better than me. And I'll never forget that first summer after my freshman year, when they all took the summer off, I went on the 21 and under tour. And I would practice a lot with the men, right? They were bigger, stronger, hit the ball harder. I had to get my reflexes. And I came back to school. And I came back my sophomore year, we had tryouts. And I moved from number 6 to number 2. I went from having a half scholarship to a full scholarship.
Full scholarship. Awesome.
And by the end of that year, I was playing number 1 and became team captain and led the team for 3 years. And I say that because sometimes you have to trust in someone else's vision for you until you can believe it for yourself. It's how I went from Louisiana to South Florida. I trusted in someone else's vision for me. I didn't know anything about sales. That's how I became a sales executive in corporate America. And it's how I became a professional speaker. And so from a spiritual perspective, it's often, I will tell my prospective clients, I'll say, do you know who Joel Osteen is? And most of them go, yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely too. Listen to him sometimes.
And I said,
in fact, I didn't know who he was till middle of last year. And I was super, super frustrated, depressed with my life. And then I'm on internet one day and this ad comes on of Joel Epstein and then I'm like, okay, I'll listen to this. And then Spirit says, I was about to go on a drive, and I've never really gone on a long drive by myself before. It's always been someone with me, right? And I had to do this. So, and Spirit says to me, like, take him on the drive with you. And so I listened to him like 8 hours of him all the way to my destination. And well, yes, I was really rah-rah by the time I got there.
And I tell my prospective clients or my clients, and I say, and most of them know Joel Osteen. And then I say, do you know who Joyce Myers is? Some do and some don't. Joyce Myers has a huge worldwide ministry, massive. She just doesn't have one big church like Joel Osteen. And I said, Joel Osteen, he's a coddler. I like him, but I think he's a coddler. Joyce Myers, the exact opposite. She's like, suck it up, buttercup. This is life. Get it done. And I said, I'm right in between. That's who I am, right? I'm right in between.
Right.
Wow. I remember when I was at college and I was dating this guy. He's Catholic church. And he would never go to church with me. I went to the non-denominational church on campus. But I would go to the Catholic church with him. And they had all these rituals. And I would ask him, why do you do this? what does this mean? And he said, well, that's just what we do. But what does it mean? He didn't know. And I began to see that some people just kind of step into that. At the end of my college career, I actually went to live in Australia, and I was working with Campus Crusade for Christ International in the field missions at Sydney University. Great, great experience. And came back, got married. A few years later, going through a divorce. My car catches on fire. So what do I do? The insurance
What?
would, yeah, the insurance wouldn't pay for it.
Car
Now,
catches on fire.
yeah. Now I knew I didn't want to be a tennis teaching professional my entire life, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had, being the submissive Southern Christian wife, I had given up my dreams of being in the FBI or going to law school when I was married. That's a story for another day. So,
So that was your passion as you were growing up. You wanted to be an FBI or a law student.
see, I thought I was going to be a neurosurgeon until I realized when I got to college and we missed so much school because of traveling to play tennis. There was no way you could, you couldn't stay afloat in pre-med with all the other people and compete. We just missed too much school. So I changed from that to psychology. And then psychology, my freshman year, I actually, Hoffeld, his name was Hoffeld, Dr. Hoffeld. He was the only professor that taught Psych 101. So you had to go through Psych 101 to move up in the psych. And he did not like athletes, and he really didn't like female athletes. So when we had permission to miss class, he hated it. And I remember turning in a paper one time, and it was right before the cutoff. And he said, you just need to drop my course. And I said, why? He goes, you're probably going to get a D. Maybe I'll give you a C. And I said, but I'm a dean's list student. I don't care. You missed too much of my class. So I was forced out of psychology because I didn't want a D on my report card, if you will. Yeah. So then I went into criminal law and really thought I was going to be a lawyer or with the FBI. I explained both of those to my fiance at the time. Before we got, he said he totally understood, but he was deep Southern Christian from even further south than me in Louisiana, and that just didn't work after we got there. Right. So I ended up going up to Louisiana, to Shreveport, where my dad was, got a new car and went over to Dallas, Texas. This is the spring of '87. Now, this is important because this is when the government broke up AT&T and all the Baby Bell monopoly, right? This is when long distance competition became fierce. My second cousin, I lived with my second cousin. She was head of personnel for Neiman Marcus. And she taught me how to buy the Navy suit and the pearls and the high heels and, God forbid, wear the pantyhose. Aren't you glad we don't have to wear pantyhose anymore? I actually got hired by a company called Metro Media Communications. And the lady said, okay, this is the second time in my life this happened. And she said, will you come back tomorrow and meet my boss, the VP? And I said, sure. I go in the next day. She interviews me. She kind of sits back in her chair, looks me up and down. And she says, great. I'll see you in Miami in a week. And I said, no, you won't. Now, mind you, I needed a job, right?
Right.
I said, you have an office in Dallas. I'm interviewing in Dallas. My friends from the tennis tour are in Dallas, and my family is 3.5 hours away. I'm working in Dallas. Yeah, I was pretty ballsy, right?
Right.
And so she says to me, I need somebody really strong in Miami in a week. And I'm like, how do you know I'm strong? I've never done this.
Right.
She looked me up and down and she said, just trust me and be there in a week. And so I did. And that led to a
so you switched your decision from Dallas to Miami.
Well, I chose to trust her. That was my point.
Okay.
She had a vision for me that I could be a very good sales executive. I knew nothing about sales.
And she did this without questioning you.
No, she interviewed me.
You're right.
She interviewed me.
And so what kind of questions did she, like, in the interview? Like, what was it that you said to her that gave her the confidence to trust you?
I have no freaking idea. That was 1987. I couldn't tell you. I just know that I finally said yes, and I got in my car, packed up my car, and drove to South Florida, and it led to a more than 26-year, very successful sales career for Fortune 100 companies, AT&T, Sprint, and Paychex.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us what happened. So you go to Miami.
at first I was working for Metro Media, her company. And after about 30 days out on the streets, pounding doors, cold calling, I told them, I want to move up into management. I don't want to be a salesperson on the street. And they go, okay, do this, achieve these goals for the next 6 months, and we'll move you into management. I said, okay. So I went and achieved those goals, and they didn't move me up. They promoted a young male model, good looking guy. His name is Aaron.
Right.
We're friends, but good looking guy. And all the other staff was female. So they promoted him above me. So that I went looking for another job. And you may not remember this. The company was called Metagram America. It was the first picture. It was about this big. And how you got a message on is you called an operator and she typed it in and it sent it out to this thing. But it
Oh,
was the
no.
newest thing. It was the newest thing. So I went to work for a gentleman named Gary Dobell. And after about 6 months, I said, Gary, I'm your best salesperson. He goes, yeah, you are. I said, I can't make enough money here. He goes, yeah, I know. He gave me the name of somebody. He goes, go talk to this guy. So I go talk to
Right.
this guy. He's with AT&T. They offer me a good job. I went to AT&T, and 2 weeks later, guess who shows up at AT&T?
It shows up at AT&T.
My boss that I just
Your
left.
other guy from, okay.
He was going to AT&T and he wanted me there. So I was there from 88 to the end of 99. My claim to fame in a very tumultuous time of all that competition is that I never lost a client. I excel at high-end relationship management. Never lost a client in 11 years. And at the end of, and I was taught by my dad, you go to work for one company, you keep your nose clean, you work hard, and they'll take care of you. So in probably the September of 99, I went to HR. I went to my boss first. I went to HR and I said, I want a raise in my base salary. And she said, you do? And I'm like, yeah, you're paying these kids out of college with no experience the same base salary I have. I've got almost 11 years. I make over quota every year. I've never lost a client. You know what she said to me? This was a big mistake. She said, leave and come back in 6 months. I have more money in that budget. I was like, what?
And you're.
What? I went on one interview to Sprint, got a 50% increase in my base pay like that.
Yeah, of course.
My boss was ticked off. She tried to save me. She couldn't do it. I went to Sprint. Actually didn't stay there very long. Very young manager. They wanted me to take his position and I didn't want it. I went to work for SBC Communications, happy as a pig in mud. I was there less than 6 months and the entire division got laid off. They laid off everybody in the city. I'm gone. I went through an interim there where I tried to help a friend start a business and it didn't work. But the lady who hired me at SBC, I really liked her. She had gone back to national accounts at Sprint. This is important to what AT&T did. So I told her, no, I'm not coming back to telecom. She wined me and dined me every week for about 6 weeks. The offer got better and better and better and better. And so finally I said, yes.
Right.
And in June of 2002, I went to work, back to work for Sprint, different division, different boss. And she said, your first job is to go win the Burger King account away from MCI. I said, okay. And so I did. It was about, I don't know, $300,000 account. And I did. She goes, you know what your second job is? I said, oh, I know my second job. You see, when I was at AT&T, I had managed their largest account in South Florida.
Right.
And I just told you that I excel at high-end relationship management.
Yeah.
I had 26 relationships built inside that organization.
Yeah. Wonderful.
My
Amazing.
second job,
She wanted all of them.
That's what I did. I went and won Amadeus away from AT&T. It was I took a $33 million account away from AT&T. Think about it. They didn't want to give me a raise in my base pay.
Yeah.
And they lost a $33 million account.
Yeah.
I went from Sprint after several years there, felt very undervalued, didn't know what I think I went through a midlife crisis, to be honest. Even though I wasn't quite 50 yet.
An alpha male is one thing, but an alpha female, look out.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so true. And so many people struggle with dealing with powerful females. They just do.
Yeah.
Strong.
Yeah.
You could say powerful, you could say strong. So for about 2.5 years, in invested in my own personal development. I did a lot of personal development training, had
And what
coaches, different.
motivated you to do that? Like, what in you said that you, being as confident as you were, being as somebody who basically knew she could get whatever she could get, why does someone like that feel like they need more personal development?
Because I didn't have clarity on who I was and what I really wanted to do. I walked away from corporate America without a job. I just walked away. I'm like, no more.
Right. And
And
what caused you to do that? Like, there
I
had
was
to be.
I was having to spend hours and hours every month proving to them why I should get paid my commissions. I felt very undervalued.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean,
I
at one point,
absolutely hear you.
yeah, they tried to take an $18,000 commission from me.
Yeah.
$18,000. Fortunately, I documented everything in the system. And so my assistant and I, we spent days, not hours, days, getting all of the data as to why they owed me that money. That, to me, you don't value what I bring to the table. If you're going to make me,
Yeah.
first I go sell it, and then you're going to make me work to get paid that I already did.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what triggered it, but somebody invited me to go to an event by T. Harv Eker. Back then, T. Harv Eker owned Peak Potentials out of Vancouver, Canada. You know him? He
Yeah.
wrote Secrets of the Millionaire. I went to his Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
I went to his thing too.
Yeah.
It blew me away.
I went to his one day, whatever that one night intensive thing he was. And then initially I just took 1 or 2 courses, and then I went through Quantum Leap, which is all of his major courses. And then
So you did all of them. So you did all of them. Wow.
Plus I added on,
you.
plus I added on Ultimate Leadership Camp. And at the time that I went to Ultimate Leadership Camp, I had no idea that I was going to become a leadership coach many years down the road. I will tell you, it was the hardest thing I have ever done. I thought Enlightened Warrior Camp was tough until I went to Ultimate Leadership Camp. Hardest thing I'd ever done.
Right.
By the 4th day on Thursday, here's exactly what I said. If I have to go up that damn mountain one more day, sure enough, we're on the bus at 5:30. We go up that mountain. And one of the exercises I had to lead a team member through was getting in a canoe, going across a lake to do a special thing over there and come back. This lady happened to be heavy set. Not a problem. What the problem was is her backpack was almost as big as her. I'm like, we can't take that in the canoe. Obviously, at that time,
Right.
with her, my leadership skills weren't quite what they needed to be, because she was determined. She's bringing that backpack.
Right.
She tumped. We were up in the high mountains of New York, late September. It's chilly, and she tumped us over in the water at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh my God.
We were on that mountain until 1:30 in the morning. Wet.
Oh
cold.
my God.
The next day was the last day of the camp, and you had an intimate group of 8 people. There was more people in the camp in several groups. And what you did for the last part is you sat down and you gave each other feedback on your leadership skills. And it came to my turn, and I'll never forget this guy. He was younger than me. His name was Seth. And he looked at me, he goes, I just have one thing to say to you, Carol. I was like, okay. He said, I would follow you anywhere.
Oh.
And honestly, I could hardly breathe. It was like, it just hit me. Like, the lady next to him, Diane, looked at him. She goes, I'm with him. I'll follow you anywhere.
Right.
Let me tell you, September of 2007, you know what I did? The very next month, in 30 days, I went back to corporate America. I was not ready. You know, to me, leadership, man, you're going to start a business, people are going to follow something. I wasn't ready. I went back to corporate.
Why corporate America?
I love corporate America. I love structure, and I was a weird salesperson because I'm a rule follower.
Right.
Nobody in my family's ever owned their own business. I had no experience at it.
Right.
You go to work for somebody else. That's all I knew. And I'm sure it felt safe at the time.
Right.
It just felt safe. I had a great boss. I was there for almost 7 years, but in the summer of 2014, I'd been there over 6.5 years.
So when you went back, where'd you go? You went back to AT&T, or you went back to
Paychex, a new company. Paychex.
Okay. So brand new company. So so there was no, well, we'll take you back if you take a pay cut kind of thing. You were with a totally different company, and they basically valued you for your credentials at that time.
I did take a pay cut because it was a
Right.
totally different industry. As a matter of fact, one of my mentors during that time, his name is Keith Cunningham. He wrote an amazing book called Keys to the Vault. And one of the things that he taught me was you have to get in line and stay in line. And everybody starts at the back of a line.
Yeah.
And I remember going on the second interview with her.
Yeah.
And I knew she was going to offer me that job. And I got in my car and I said, God, I don't want to start at the back of a line. Seriously, this is a job I should have had way before AT&T and Sprint.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
So I got in line, stayed in line.
Yeah.
And fast forward to the summer of 2014. I mean, I thought I had it made, to be honest with you.
You just moved up really a lot faster than anyone else because you knew you didn't want to be at the back of the line.
Exactly. And I mean, I had sold over $70 million in revenues over those years, gotten the awards, walked across the stages. I could do it in my sleep. I thought I had it made.
Right.
Until the day I got that phone call and they told me they were cutting my territory by 80%. And I said, 80%? I've been building this territory for 6.5 years. Well, you didn't have to tell me twice. It was time to look for another job. Now, I told you I love large corporate structure, but a friend of mine whispered in my ear about an opportunity at a small upcoming company. So I went on the interview. I interviewed with them twice. They hired me. They doubled my base pay plus commissions, and they gave me a director title. I could just see the potential, right? Now, 6 weeks into this job, I'm on vacation because I negotiated that in my contract because I had already paid for the vacation. Now, I was being what I thought at the time was a good employee. I was staying in touch with my boss while on vacation. Since then, I've learned better. Maya Angelou says, when you learn better, you do better.
Right.
Trust me. I tell my clients, honey, when you're on vacation, you're on vacation. But at that time, I was staying in touch and I got this email wanting my opinion on something. So I replied and I waited because he usually replies right back and he didn't. We went out, we enjoyed our vacation. We came in that night. Ding, there goes my phone. Carol Boston, you've got mail. Here's what it said. It said, Carol, comma. That's what you really think? And it had 5 question marks behind it. Then it said, don't bother coming into this office on Monday when your vacation is over. You're done here. What? I don't get fired. Wait, I just got fired in an email for having an opinion that I was asked for? This is a true story. I didn't make this up.
Because it was an opinion which changed everything that they were doing, right? Absolutely. Yep. Everything.
And I knew 3 weeks into this job, I knew that I was already being set up to fail. I knew. I really did. Here was another man who did not like, I don't know why he hired me. I really don't know why he hired me. He doesn't like strong women. Because he wanted
to have the fun, or he wanted to take you down, or whatever it was.
Yep, whatever it was. And every time he tried to do that, I stood my ground and he just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I came back. I had an interview the very next day and I interviewed all over this country. I depleted my 401k. I was determined to get a job. I was flown sometimes 3 and 4 interviews deep. And I thought, how ironic that I could sell $70 million worth of business for somebody else and I can't close a deal to get myself a job. So there I was. Faith is my foundation. There I was in my prayer time, many, many, many months into this, in the midst of a toxic relationship, which didn't help. And I said, God, I really did yell. I said, you made me. You created me. You know I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. I do not want to own my own business. You have got to help me find a good job. And literally two weeks to the day from that prayer, out of the blue, I got an email from a woman that I had met one time out of town at a conference. She gifted me a $3,500 ticket to go to Los Angeles to study at Guerrilla Business School. Now, I tell people my God has a sense of humor because Guerrilla Business School was a foundational school for entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah.
So I figured what I'm doing isn't working. What I don't know. So off I went to Los Angeles.
Right.
The first thing I learned while I was there.
This is an awesome story. I love it.
The first thing I learned when I was in Los Angeles, and this is going to be the title of my single book coming out at the end of this year, is you can't read the label when you're inside the jar. And we're all in a jar.
Right.
That's why we all need a good coach. All of us need a
Right.
good coach, right?
Absolutely.
We have these blinders on, opportunities sitting right here that we can't see because they don't look like what we think they should look like. Now, the
Right.
second thing I learned,
And when you're
go ahead.
communicating with someone, whatever they're saying to you, you can see something that's totally different than what they're telling you. They don't see it no matter what. They have
Yes,
no idea of it. It doesn't exist in their reality, but you can see it. And
yes.
so the idea of masterminding and the idea of communicating with somebody who probably is more successful than you is probably the best thing you can do.
Let me tell you, you hit the nail on the head because I recently left a mastermind. And when they asked, why did I leave? I said, because I was the smartest person in the room. I can't grow here.
Right.
I'd rather be the dumbest person in the room, right?
Right.
That's how I learned to play tennis. I would beg people who were better than me to play with me, right? Come play with me. Let me learn from you. And so you hit the nail right on the head. The second thing I learned was about empowering questions. And I was determined, this is in the summer of 2015, I was determined to master them. And I studied with the best. Nirka, Michael Strasner. I also studied leadership with John Maxwell, Lisa Nichols. That's what I was doing.
Right.
Now, I met a friend at this Guerrilla Business School, good friend of mine, Kim. She and her 3 kids live out in California. And we decided at that Guerrilla Business School, we both enrolled in 2 of the same courses.
Right.
And one of them was a course with Marsha Weeder. So a month later, I'm back in California. I go through this course and I come back. I'm still looking for a job, investing a lot of money in my growth and whatever. So she calls me up one day. She goes, hey, Kara, you, me, and Evan. I said, who's Evan? She goes, he's a friend of mine. You just didn't meet him. I said, what are we doing? She goes, we're going to become certified dream coaches. I said, what? She goes, isn't that why you went to Marsha's course? I said, no. She goes, well, all you're doing is looking for a job. So you have time. So we're going to get certified to be coaches. So I said, okay. And for the next 120 days, we did our work and we got certified as dream coaches. And it was invaluable work. And I use some of that with my clients today, but it was very difficult to market.
Right.
Because people thought I was going to analyze their sleep. And that's not what it's about. She has a 12-step program that she taught us that takes somebody who has a dream and doesn't know how to make it a reality and steps them through it. Or you can take somebody who had forgotten how to dream, right? And get them to dream again and move into their goals. So I was still stuck on trying to be a salesperson. I was in my jar. I had labeled myself. So I had these 3 other services that I was trying to sell into human resources of large corporations.
Right.
It's now the fall of 2017.
Right.
And I got my second coaching certification by Christian Michelson. And we're on a phone call with about 100 people. You know who Christian Michelson is?
No, I do not. You'll have to fill me in.
He's a multimillionaire coach to coaches. That's all he does is coach coaches. And his motto, his theme is, let's coach the whole world. Let's get the whole world coached. I was getting my second certification from him, still not fully committed. We're on a phone with about 150 people. And he says, Carol, your niche, you're a sales coach. And I said, I don't want to be a sales coach. And he said, here I go again, right? Just like getting the job. Here I go again. And he goes, it's the hottest niche with the fewest good coaches, and you are really good. I said, I don't want to be a sales coach. He kind of sighed. He goes, okay, Carol, what do you want to do? And I said, my ideal client knows and accepts they are 100% responsible for their experience of life. Let me tell you, this man groaned so loudly. He went, oh my God. He goes, personal development, that sounds like work. Nobody's paying for work. Sell what they want and give them what they need. And that sounded like bait and switch to me. I didn't understand that because I'm a rule follower.
Right.
So there I was in December of 17. I still got these 3 products. This is another pivotal time. I'm at Nova Southeastern University. You're going to get the 3rd pivotal time in my life that I trusted in someone else's vision. So I'm at Nova, meeting with this lady. We talk about all my products. We talk a little bit about my coaching, but not much. We're walking back across campus. She stops. She looks me up and down. She says, I know what I'm going to do for you. I said, what? She said, I'm going to hire you. I said, hire me to do what? She said, to speak. I said, to speak? She goes, don't give me that bullshit. You're a speaker.
Right.
And I thought, I said, well, who am I going to speak to? She said, I'm going to put you in front of 50 or 60 of the top HR people in South Florida. I thought, oh my God. And she said, I said, when is this? This is December the 7th, 2017. She said, March. I'm thinking, I am in the frying pan. And I said, well, how long am I going to talk? And she said, 90 minutes. And I said, 90 minutes? I'm now in the fire. I'm not even in the frying pan. I'm in the fire. And she calmly looked at me and she said, just send me your CV and send me your fees. What? I'm going to get paid for my first speaking engagement? Are you kidding me? I trusted in her vision that I could be a speaker. And fast forward, it didn't happen in March. It didn't happen until August. What happened was I got into an office situation. Turned out I got lied to. It ended up costing me about 30 grand. Bad business deal. But I met two amazing people there. One was Lori, who helped me with my content for my speeches and my workshops. And another lady was named Heather. I love Heather. She's about this short. I wish I could wear my hair like Heather. She's African-American and she's got that short, I mean, almost no hair look. I'm like, oh, I want that hair, right? And she's in HR. She wanted me to speak at Kaiser University. But she wasn't the final decision maker. So the lady at Kaiser was giving me a hard time. And Lori kept saying, just say no. Just focus on your workshop for Nova. I said, no, I am not going to Nova and get paid for a speaking engagement and never having done one before. I'm not doing it. So on August the 2nd, I went to Nova. I gave a 90-minute workshop. I had no idea how prophetic that workshop was going to be. A week later, I show up at Nova Southeastern University with two of my friends to help me. It's a half-day event. There was another speaker before me. She must have had 10 degrees behind her name. PhD this, doctor this, LCSW this. She wrote a book on brains. I was like, oh my God. So we walk in the room and this man with a big chest and a booming voice goes, Carol Boston. And I look up and the lady who hired me was right there. She goes, you know Carol? He goes, Carol's the only reason I came today. I thought, oh my God, I don't need the pressure. His name is Barry Johnson, an amazing man. And he and I had worked together for 10 years at AT&T.
Oh, wow.
So the other lady was setting up. She was going to go first and I went to help her set up. And she says, so Carol, how long have you been on the circuit? I said, what circuit? She said, the speaking circuit. And I leaned in and I said, oh, I'm not supposed to tell you. She goes, why not? I said, my first one was last Thursday. This is my second one. She looked at me like I lost my mind, right? She went first. Unfortunately, she totally lost the audience. My BFF, my best friend who was with me said, can I take a nap? I'm like, don't you dare say that. It was getting close to my turn to go. I went outside. I went to the restroom. I'm stretching, getting ready. The lady who was running the event who hired me comes up to me. She grabs me by the shoulders. She's in my face. She goes, you are going to increase the energy in the room, aren't you? I'm like, absolutely. I just am concerned that it's not enough time for my content. And she said, that's why we want content. You're not using those stupid slides, are you? I said, nope, no slides. So we get started. Here's the number one lesson I learned as a speaker at that time. Take your own time cards.
Right.
I told her, let me know, this time in, this time in. Well, she took a regular little Bic pen, wrote it on a piece of paper, and she's sitting all the way across the room. So the first holds up the card. I'm like, I can't read that. Right in front of the audience. I said, I can't read that. And so she says, 30 minutes. And I'm thinking, no, that can't be right. So I got everybody to start doing an exercise. And I went to her and I said, no, we started 15 minutes late. I have 45. She goes, oh yeah. She goes, oh yeah, let me fix my cards. We keep going. Wait, this turns out to be a great story. So this is about trusting in someone else's vision for you. We keep going. And she's at the very back of the room with my BFF who was taking film. She holds up another one. I just start laughing. I'm like, I can't read that far away. They both spoke at the same time. Right. And I didn't hear it correctly. And I thought they said 3 minutes. And I went, 3 minutes? give me 4 and I'll wrap this up. So I skipped a little chunk and I wrapped it up, and everybody stands up and they're clapping, clapping. This woman makes a beeline around the room, gets in my ear, and she said, we didn't say 3 minutes. We said 30 minutes. Sit them down and teach them something, because they were there to get CE credits, continuing
Right.
education. She goes, sit them down and teach them something. So I go, okay. So I set everybody down. I said, this is awesome. We have time for Q&A, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you, that was a God moment. The people who were in the room that knew me told me afterwards, you were so in your element that last 30 minutes. Unbelievable. One of the ladies that had been at Kaiser the week before, this is a true story, I don't make this up, and she's a big woman, she's tall, right? So after everybody had said congratulate, I was packing up my stuff and I'm sitting in a chair, and she comes up and I look up at her. She looks at me and she goes, Carol, you were good last week. And then she paused, and I'm thinking, oh my God. She goes, you were fucking amazing today. I was like, oh my God. But here's the rub. A woman walks up to me and she says, I want you to teach this workshop to my people. And I said, who are you? She get VP of HR for American Express.
Oh, well, hello.
She said, do you have a business card? I said, yes. I said, do you have a card? She said, no. And I'm a salesperson. I knew I would never hear from her again. Salespeople, that's what we do, right? We follow up, follow up, follow up. No card. This is August the 9th. September, she called me. And that led me into being hired 6 times in American Express the next year, because I trusted that woman's vision that I could be a speaker.
Yeah.
Think about
That's
that.
amazing. And
Think
so what a lesson that is for everybody else that's listening to this too, that people that come into your life often come into your life as a gift.
Yes.
And maybe you do or don't recognize it, but listen, because especially when they're out of the blue, you don't know where they came from and who this person is, give them your time and give them your attention, because chances are, somebody taught me a long time ago that there's 2 types of energies that come into your life. One is an unknown, and one is a known. And when it's an unknown energy, it could be a person, it could be a thing, it could be anything. It could be a gift that somebody sends you in the mail. Especially when it's an unknown, pay attention, because that unknown is going to lead you to some amazing outcomes in your life if you're paying attention.
And it was interesting that December the 18th, before all that happened, one of the things I actually learned it from Lisa Nichols. I give her full credit.
Okay.
That there's a huge difference between being committed and being convicted. You see, I thought I was committed to being a coach, but I was really just dabbling, because I had these other 3 services that I was still trying to sell.
Right.
But I learned that when you're convicted, think about this. People decommit all the time, don't they? They go, I'm married for life until the day I'm not, right? Or I'm going to lose this 20 pounds. And then it turns into Monday next month, next year, and never happens. Right. But when you're convicted, you won't rest until you get it done. And you must learn that your conviction and your comfort and your convenience do not live on the same block. They're not even in the same zip code.
Yeah, there's a verse in the Quran that says faith is not about convenience, it's about conviction.
Yes. So true.
And conviction to me means that your heart and soul is in this thing, right? That you're not letting it go, you're going to hold on to this with dear life, like your life depends on it. So
and that's exactly what I've been doing. I let go of those other 3 services. I got convicted to becoming a coach and a speaker, and actually speaking in corporate America. I love training in corporate America, and that was a big part of my business plan until COVID hit. So that kind of threw me this past year, and I'm looking to make new connections, to get back into that this year. But one of the things I learned, I am the shake your hand, give you a hug girl. Right. Before COVID, I built my business entirely on networking and referrals. Right. I'd do 30 events a month easy.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden COVID hit, there was no more events initially.
So from my vantage point, someone who's a salesperson, a rules person, a job person, how does someone like that go from that to being able to be someone who's a networking person?
They're very similar. It's just about having a conversation.
Everything's about having a conversation. Absolutely.
And I talked earlier about empowering questions. I'm known as the queen of reframe. I told you I was going to master them. That's one of the reasons I was invited back in American Express so many times. One time it was just to do a deep level on empowering questions just in the area of values and objectives.
Right.
And I have found that very few people, my coach told me that she doesn't know any other coach, and she's been a coach a long time, that does what I do.
Right.
I not only teach on them, I use them for myself. I teach my clients how to use them. They use them. The transformations I've seen are mind-boggling. So I'm going to give your audience,
so when you
I'm going to give
say
your audience a preview.
so when you say empowering question, you mean questions that don't end in yes or no?
They never, ever, ever start with the word why either, ever. Right? Because why brings in defensiveness, which brings in the ego, which brings in emotions. And when emotions go up, intelligence goes down. It's true for every human being.
Right. Huh.
I spoke to a business professionals lunch for the chamber about 3-4 months ago. And it was in the area of, I was talking in the areas of sales, how to use an empowering question to take money off the table. But prior to that, somebody had said something about being a parent or whatever. And I said, well, think about how you could use empowering questions and stop asking why of your children.
Right.
I said, let me give you an example. I said, even if you haven't had children, your parents probably did this to you. So it's pretty common, right?
Right.
You come home and you don't have a perfect report card and they say, why did you get a D, right? Or you miss curfew and they say, why are you late? And what does that child do? They get defensive. They got to defend their position because you've shamed them. What if you had asked a completely different question when that child came home with a C or a D or a grade you didn't like? If you had phrased it like this, what one thing, because when you're asking empowering questions, they have to be specific. What one thing could you do differently next semester to improve upon your grade?
Right.
Think about that question.
Yeah, I
You'd,
hear you.
you'd have a completely different conversation. And
Yeah.
the thing is, if that child thinks it up, they're much more likely to do it because they thought it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being in sales and I had my team, and my team were like, sales is the hardest thing in the world. It's the hardest thing in the world. And I'm like, okay, well, how about this? Whatever you're doing today, I want everyone to give me one goal that takes them a little bit better or a lot better, whatever you think you can do. But I want you to write it down. I want you to give it to me. I don't care if it's $1 more than you sold today.
That's right.
Right. And then when you get there, we're going to move further up and keep going till you realize that sales isn't difficult. It's all about communication. It's all about building relationships with the person who's in front of you. That's all that sales is about. And so it's
I tell people sales makes the world go round, because if we didn't have sales, you and I, we wouldn't have laptops. We'd be naked. We wouldn't have anything.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't have anything.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to sell yourself every day. That's why I love networking. You're out there, you're just selling yourself every day. Yeah. But like I say, when COVID hit, here's something I want to leave your audience with that I've learned during COVID that's been powerful for me.
Sure.
I lost pretty much all my clients at COVID. They just said, look, you can charge my credit card, but there's no money on it. I lost my job. Okay. I had done everything offline. I had no online presence at all. Right. And I realized I got to change. Right. On May 31st, to this day, you're going to laugh. I've never even taken a selfie, never. And I had never done a Facebook Live, but I had joined this group.
I love that you hadn't done that. I love that because you're living, you're actually living life, because all those other things really just take you away from what life is until you learn to live with them in your life.
Yes.
You know what I'm trying to say?
I do. When I went to all those networking events and people would say, let's take a picture. I'd say, you got your camera? Yeah. Why? Because when I'm talking to you, I'm present. You have my divided attention. Right. And you need to know that when you give me your business card and you tell me what time to call you, I'm going to call you.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you. But on May 31st of this year, there's a group on Facebook. I have put at least 15 people into this guy's group. See, I can sell anything I believe in, right? And
Absolutely.
it's
And the
called
key
the
is you believe in it.
yes, it's called the Rise and Inspire Speakers. If you do this, whether it's live, hashtag replay, tell him Carol Boston sent you. Just tell David, Carol Boston sent you. You'll get in. And here's the cool thing he does. 1 week out of every month, he has Inspiration Week.
Okay.
And each day has a different theme. And if you're in his group, you get to go pick a day and the theme you want to talk on. And you get to go live in his group for 30 minutes. Now think about this. I've never even taken a selfie and I'm going to go live for 30 minutes. I didn't even know there was a chat to look at. That's how little I knew about Facebook. I didn't even know there was a chat. I went live for 30 minutes on May 31st, and 2 weeks I had a new client in the United Kingdom.
Amazing.
But the lesson is it's just about showing up. You got to keep showing up.
Yeah.
You know, when someone said to me, what did it take for you to get a college scholarship and play professional? We didn't even talk about the fact that I played professional tennis. There's not time.
No.
It was short. It was short-lived anyway due to injuries. But I said, the first thing, you got to show up every day.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to practice when other people are resting. And that doesn't mean you never take a rest. I don't advocate for that. But there are times that you have to practice when other people are resting. You have to be willing to do the same thing over and over and over and over, right? That same mentor.
That's a big one. I learned that because, well, I'm like, come on, I want to sing. I love singing. I do sing, but this repetition thing, why the frick do we have to do this repetition thing? There has to be a better way. There has to be a system. Step 1 to step 10, and this is in and it's done. And after about 40 years, I decided, okay, maybe we should try this repetition thing.
Listen, we would have to do things at college on tennis. Do you know much about what the tennis court looks like?
I have a friend who's trying to get me to learn tennis, so I went online to do a little bit of background about tennis and what the rules are, but no, not really. So
well, there's the main court, and then there's two what they call alleys down each side. There's alleys, right. 3-foot alley. We would have to sometimes, after the end of a 2.5-hour practice, she would partner us up with somebody, and let's say it was my forehand and their backhand. We would have to hit 100 balls in that alley without missing before we could go to dinner. Trust me, there was people you did not get paired with. Like it was dark before,
right.
Right? And she'd be like, yeah, you can finish that tomorrow because it's dark. But
so your senses had to help you too in that process.
Oh yeah. But you had to have patience. You had to just be willing, like my mentor said, how long can you hold? You see, often we want our friends and our family to believe in our, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Sometimes I have a little bit of an, it's my internet. It's my internet.
Okay.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
And we often want our parents and our family and our friends to be our when we start our business. Right. God didn't give your vision to them. He gave it to you. It's your responsibility to surround yourself, just like we've done with this book, to surround yourself with people who will believe in you and lift you up. Listen, I've been at this for a few years now. Even a month ago, are you ready? My dad's about to turn 90 a month ago. He says, well, Carol, are you sure you don't wish you'd stayed at AT&T? I'm like, Dad, I left there in 99. Really? But that's all he knows.
Because that's his mindset. That's what that's what he had, and that's the best he knew. So that's what he wants for you, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, well, thank you for sharing that amazing story. Thank you for sharing how important it is to believe in someone else's vision of you. Thank you for sharing the trust part too, because you got to trust whoever it is, and you got to trust in yourself. So 2 things are important: trusting in yourself and trusting the other person.
Yes.
And in a way, you're fulfilling your own dream by being aware at a time when you're in a pivotal point. You mentioned 3 pivotal points in your whole story today. and they're all very different, but if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't have recognized them as a pivotal point. And it's and so paying attention is super important as well.
It is. And when you hear me, if you follow me on Facebook or whatever, when I go live all the time, the first thing I say is welcome to Carol's Corner.
You're gonna
And
have to repeat that. You cut out.
Who sees me on my Facebook Live, every time I go on, I say, welcome to Carol's Courage to Confidence Corner. Because, one of the things I work with my clients on is that confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is a decision to act. You just have to have that little bit of courage, which is what I did, right? A little bit of courage to act, to go do it. And then as you do it, you continue to build confidence. But if you wait till you feel like it, you'll never do it. So I'm encouraging your audience, all you need to know is the next step. You don't have to see the whole picture. If we had time and you knew what had happened in the last 18 months of my life, you would understand about all you need to do is take the next step. I believe God gives me a lamplight for my feet, because that's all. And the short story is, I sold my house of 26 years. I told you I got into a bad business deal, took a lot of money, thought I was going to live in that house forever. Took money out to pay down some debt so I could grow this business. And in 9 months, God saw fit for me to move 6 times in 9 months. And when I told you that it was prophetic, that I spoke at Kaiser University, in looking back, the title of that talk, a year before all this chaos happened, the title of that was Leadership, Navigating a Successful Course in the Winds of Change. And that's
exactly what you've been doing. So you basically manifested what you spoke, which our words are, our tongue is a double-edged sword, right? So
yes.
When we speak, we can manifest what we speak or what we think, and what we think into manifestation, speak into manifestation, like you're saying. I mean, it'll happen. It'll absolutely happen when you have the conviction, like you said.
Yes, absolutely. I totally believe we create as we speak. I even tell my clients it's biblical. God says, call things that aren't as though they are. You must believe, and then you see. And that's one of the very foundational pieces. I work with my clients in 5 areas: clarity, mindset mastery, strategic action plan, upgrading their skill sets, including sales and other ones, and then a 360-degree look at their environment. But the very first piece I work on with all my clients is getting clear on who they were created to be,
Right.
not who they think they are based on the story that they've brought forward with them.
Right.
And if I had time to tell you stories, it'd blow your mind. I get to see the most amazing.
We're gonna do this again, because we have to, because I don't see any way out of it. You have too much to offer humanity from your life, so we're gonna have to do this again. Maybe we should do a series,
We can if you want.
a topic series, and do a Zoom series together on how to be a life coach of your own life. Maybe that's a good topic. And
That could be.
and because listening to you, I just see and feel that the vantage points you're talking about in your life are also vantage points that exist in everyone's life, but only if they could see those vantage points and know what to do when they reach those vantage points. Yes. And if they had that, handbook of life success that I feel that you've lived and recognized, what a different life everyone would lead.
I'm telling you, when I do that work with my clients, it's just mind-boggling. It's the reason many of them double and triple their income. It really is.
Like when you say, it's not what you see, it's what you believe. What you see is what you believe. It's not the other way around. You've got to be able to know that at the core of you to be able to teach that. And how many people know that at the core of them?
They don't.
And so who in the world teaches those things, and who knows those things? And that's just amazing to actually meet someone who recognizes that at the core of them. So
I do. And even my coach told me, she said, she's been, like I said, been in the business a long time. Nobody does empowering questions like I do. That's why I'm holding on. That's going to be a part of my brand, the Queen of Reframe, because empowering questions, think about this.
Yeah.
They help you reframe from focusing on what isn't working. And they opened you to opportunities you've never even considered.
Yeah.
Right? You're telling God and the universe, I'm open to seeing, hearing, saying, or doing something I've never thought of before, never done.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of caveats in that about how you craft them, how you build them, not being attached to the outcome. There's lots we can talk about.
Oh my God, I love this connection. This is amazing. So I've exhausted my questions for today, and you've shared a lot, but like I said, for today. So I'd love to carry this on another day. I'd love to go into maybe specific subjects that we can go into and expand on. I'd love to do that with you.
Sure. For sure. Love
Thank
to
you,
talk about it.
Carol. Thank you. It was an honor to have you, and hopefully we'll have you again. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take good
Thank
care.
you.